Hi everyone.
Hey, friends.
Who's leading this? John, you're in the middle. You're meant to lead.
How's everyone doing today? Can I get a hands in the air? Share Friday / Tech Friday coming back to you, heated. We got an excellent speaker today who's bringing you the truth about anything to do with the metaverse, digital art, NFTs, all of those good things. Super stoked to have Conlan over here. Conlan, thank you so much for joining us. And why don't you just start off by telling us, what you do and how you got into this incredible journey? I know we've been chatting for a few months now, and to see async.art just rise to be this insane thing, it's so cool to see it. Tell us more about it.
Sure, yeah. Well, thanks. I'm glad I could share with you guys. So yeah, I'm Conlan, and my background is in mobile and game development. And I've been mostly like professional career has been in mobile and games, but I've been into cryptocurrency since, on and off since 2013. Not as much as I should have been, but definitely, following it. But really got into Ethereum in 2017. Basically, I'm a huge cyberpunk fan, a huge metaverse fan, and so like the concept of cryptocurrency and Ethereum and what it could do is really what drew me into it. So initially, I started as a trader, just kind of trading and listening to podcasts, and then eventually get into development, mostly in the DeFi space. Basically, just looking for projects that were interested in me, and then kind of building little projects on top of them to get a deeper understanding of those projects. So like my favorite early on was like Augur, ETHLend, and Compound, so some of those early projects. But then after getting into that for a while, I knew I wanted to work in crypto full time. So I was really just looking for my opportunity, like, okay, where can I make a splash somewhere? And then 2018 is where I discovered NFTs. I knew about them, but that's where I really got excited by what they could do. Crypto art, projects like Marvel cards, Axie Infinity, things like that. Wild Cards, of course, is a really awesome project. So yeah, just kind of, again, finding projects and building things for them, Twitter bots, dashboards, analytics boards, OpenSea was one of the first projects I started building in the NFT space because they have such a great API. And then basically, still at the same time while doing all this, working full time as a game developer, and then finally wanting to do some crypto art of my own. And being a game developer, I came from a very gamified direction. And so the concept that I initially wanted to do was, what if there was an art piece where basically people could own parts of the painting inside, not just the painting as a whole, but it would get to reach in and own those characters and backgrounds and then control them. And then, also having had done some failed games, I was like, okay, well, I know that once you make a game, it's hard to make people want to like it and the art style. And so, okay, well, what about a platform where basically the artist could do that, and just let other people, shine there. So yeah, that's the kind of genesis concept for async art, changing art across space and time. And basically the biggest difference with our platform is that rather than tokenize a single image, we allow artists to tokenize, basically break their art into layers and tokenize all those individual layers, and then grant each layer with abilities. So the artist can say the background can do a state change, the character in the foreground can move, maybe the character has different states also that can change. So I think one of the easiest ways is just sharing my screen and showing you guys some of the art that's been created so far. And of course, feel free to ask any questions if you have any so far. Oh shit!
You managing?
Yeah.
I need to add it, but yeah, there we go. Add to stream.
Awesome. Okay.
Let me zoom in. There we go.
Okay, let's see. Can you guys see my screen here?
Yep. Perfect.
Okay, sweet. So awesome. So yeah, so here's async art, and I'll just hop into the gallery. These are some of the recent art creations people have done. And so it looks kind of like any other crypto art platform, but you notice that when you jump in here, you have a master image. The master is basically the compilation of all the layers. But then if you scroll down here, you have all the layers that basically can be individually owned. And so with this painting by Gary Cartledge, he's given option for someone to own the background, the skies. So basically, if you can see the sky, there's a cover image and what the sky images actually look like. So basically, you're going to have a blank state. You're going to have a vectored night background. You're going to have a stormy sky and a sunset. And these are all paintings that he's done. And so basically, the owner anytime can change the sky. He has a sun or a moon layer. And with this one, it's pretty cool because you get both the state change, so you can change the state of what this sun or moon looks like. But you also get the rotation ability. So he's made it so that you can basically choose the orbit rotation for the sun or moon in the sky. So when you go back here, you can see the sun right here. It actually can rotate, 180 degrees in the background. And what's really cool is basically you can get into this where you can have multiple owners owning a single piece. So let's see, I'll go into, so here's Doom Party by Xcopy. In this one, there's 9 different characters and a Doom hand that can basically cover a character and kill them. And what's cool is most of these characters are belonging to different owners. And they can change at any time through a transaction. So the piece is always changing. The way it works is that we've built an open source renderer using open source image processing libraries. And so, anyone can download this render and render it to see the latest state of a piece of art. I can show you guys what changing a layer looks like. And of course, if everyone has any questions, feel free to jump in. So here's one of our really, really beautiful showcase piece. This is called The Tribe by Pak. And this is a really complex piece because it basically has 29 different layers, and all these layers vary in the amount of power they have over the painting. So some of these layers will literally change like just the color of something in here, or some of these layers will only change like the shape of something. So you have all these people clamoring for attention. You have a very powerful layer in the center, which can change the Sultan. He calls it the Sultan. And there's like these advisors and whales and miners. So there's all these like different pieces together. And I actually own a couple of the layers here. So I'll show you guys what it looks like to change. Go into your layers tab. Oops. And you can see here are some of the layers that I own. So I own the spikes layer. The spikes layer, what this layer lets you do is it lets you change the form of these little things that are around the center. And so right now I have it set to, I'm sorry, let's change the color. So right now I have it changed to gold. So basically I can change this to be, what's good? I kind of have a responsibility here because I'm changing the painting. I'm going to change this to be titanium. I'll click update. Gas is pretty expensive these days, so this is going to cost me about $1 to change. Oof. Yeah, it's rough, but it's art. Okay, so this is a transaction going out. It just like any other transaction, it just basically is calling use control token on this contract. So this will update in hopefully not too long. I can keep on talking while it's going. We basically have this canvas channel, which acts as kind of like a temporary feed. And basically you can see as art pieces change, who changed them. And then basically see what's going on. And
that's awesome. So
yeah,
can you preview, but like that platinum you picked over there to change, can you preview what it will look like before you change it, or is the kind of allure of it you don't know what exactly it's going to make the painting look like?
Yeah, that's
so it's exciting.
That's definitely requested a lot. It's something we definitely want to add, like kind of a previewer, because with gas so expensive, you want to know what it's going to look like. That being said, it's definitely like it's hard to prioritize that first, just because like there's a lot involved there. Like you kind of have to temporarily preview it, render it. So it's definitely a feature we want to have. Like ideally, you just see a picture of the image and you can just like drag it and then change it in the image. So you can see this update here came spikes layer triggered by Conlan.
Awesome.
If we go to the tribe, and now you can see I've changed the color to titanium. And what's cool is we have, well, we have one app so far. We have an Apple TV app, but basically the idea is we want to get on as many platforms as possible. So if you're looking at the tribe, or you pull the tribe up, you're going to see the latest state. If you have it always running, a layer notification pops up saying that I've changed it. And at least if you were to go to OpenSea right now and look for the tribe, it would be updated. And so the cool thing is, if you're embedding this art like in a virtual world, like CryptoVoxels or Decentraland or Somnium Space, the idea is that the art could also be reflected there. And you can see now this art's different. So anywhere that you see in OpenSea as an API to show, it's also going to change. So the idea is that when you have digital art, crypto art, I'm personally, I completely believe that, like, if I buy a token minted by the artist, it has value, but there's still a philosophical divide, like really heavy divide, chasm between people who believe that it has value and some people who are like, I don't care what you say, I don't believe that token has art. I'm going to take that art and embed it on my blog. And the whole thing with programmable art is like, well, now there's value to owning a token, because like I can change it, and everyone who's witnessing that token is going to, it's kind of like proof of ownership, proof of changeability. And so that's what this is kind of trying to answer. What does it mean to own a digital token?
So,
Awesome.
So, so to understand, basically, when you own a token, you can control and change it, but that change happens somehow verified by like a sort of back-end service, or like, do you plan to sort of almost decentralize that more so that people could run their own back-end, if that makes sense?
Absolutely. So all the code, both the contract and the renderer, is open source. So anyone can inspect the contract and download the renderer and run it. They can modify it. So the idea is the master token, the metadata is basically a set of instructions for how to render the image. And as a renderer is processing that instruction file, it's checking the layer tokens to see what properties that they've set. So that's the way that, like, okay, if the company goes away, the idea is that, okay, at least you have your art. You can spin up the renderer. You can, if you're not technical, you can get a developer to help run it for you. A collector could do it, and that way you could basically spin it up and show what your art looks like, and still use it. So like everything we build is always with that mindset, like, okay, what if we're not around in like 50 years, or what if the company's out of business in 5 years? Like everything, like how are the collectors going to basically still use their art? So everything we build is with that mindset.
That's awesome. And I mean, I feel like there would be more to dig into in terms of what the value of digital art is. So I definitely think what you've added in terms of giving people power when they own the art is super valuable. But maybe, I don't know, what would you say to someone who isn't into crypto yet, or like, what is your value proposition? Because I have seen some of the work on async.art sell for pretty high recently. So I don't know, what do you think of that? Very open-ended.
No, sure. Yeah, we tell people that art is the killer app for blockchain, but people just don't know it yet. And I guess what I mean by that is, like, our value prop to artists and collectors, mostly artists though, is that even if you don't care about blockchain at all, I mean, we don't even mention it on our homepage. Like, I mean, we mentioned it once maybe, but even if you don't care about blockchain art at all, this is a new medium in which to create. Basically, you can create now a work of art that can be owned by people around the world and changing it in ways that you have complete control over as an artist. You can basically say, hey, this like one layer can change in this box. This layer has to rotate within these degrees. So that's what we're basically going out to artists, like, hey, you can create new things here that you've never been able, no one's been able to create before. Like, okay, sure, Google, Amazon, a big platform could build like an interactive art program. But even then, if you were to try and build this in a centralized way, you have to worry about, okay, how are people going to buy this? Do they have to have a credit card? Do I have to like store their information? What's the medium in which they purchase it? And then if we disappear, of course, all the art disappears with us. But in this way, it's like literally like once you're on Ethereum, you could literally be on. This is always a promise. I don't know how much it actually is in use, but you could have like a Nokia phone and live in Madagascar and see this art. Like I want to own the eyebrows that I'm painting. And you pull up your phone, you type it up. Oh, it's for sale. You buy it and you change it. So that's kind of the power of this. Like as an artist, if you can create something like that. The dream is like imagine something on a billboard in Times Square. That's kind of the ultimate dream. Like, okay, look, if someone sees it, they can literally grab it and change it. I guess that's going back. That's kind of the value prop to artists. And honestly, this is such a new thing, I think, for artists that like we've yet to see. I mean, people are using it in all these crazy different ways, and like we've yet to see like what's the real definitive way to use this. No one's just. I don't think people discovered it yet.
Conlan, quick question.
Yeah.
So right now you showed us on, I think it was called the Triad. I can't remember. You own the platinum part that you just changed.
Yeah.
Do you can set the sale price on OpenSea for that part of the painting?
Yeah,
awesome.
Exactly. So
okay,
it's ERC 721 compliant. So yeah, you can sell it on OpenSea. You can sell it on Rarible.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, that's you could price it at $1 billion and always own that part of the painting. But if you do something like, you were saying a billboard or something crazy in Times Square, it could be quite cool to integrate Harburger tax and everything for different parts of the painting. And, everyone has to pay to continuously own a piece and be able to change it.
I mean, I love the always for sale concept and wildcards and like how it's always changing hands. So yeah, and it's kind of cool to think about a painting where maybe only one layer is even set to be always for sale. It's like, and yeah, that would be pretty awesome to have as an option.
Yeah, it could just be like that middle super rare piece is always for sale, and like all the others are normal. It's so many cool possible ideas.
I think the always for sale has yet to. Oh, sorry. I think it should be. I hope it's a standard made because I want to see more NFT projects are using it. It's brilliant.
So, very cool stuff on the Harburger tax. Of course, we are big fans. I'm curious. So let's say I've got a friend who's an artist. They don't know about crypto. Like, how do they approach, putting their art on async.art and what plans do you have to make that easier? I'm sure you've got lots of plans, so that would be very interesting.
Yeah. So first thing, you should just go to the website and apply. There's a link for artists to apply there. Basically, right now, most of the art pieces have a manual process where we work with the artists to help. Like we have a file format that they need to put their layers in, and we basically we make it very easy. We basically generate all the transactions that they need to submit, and they just have to have a Web3 enabled wallet or Brave, and just click buttons to mint. So we've made the minting process really easy. That being said, there's still friction in that process. Like I think a lot of artists come to our platform, they see the file format, and it's kind of like, oh, this is a lot of learning stuff I got to do. I'll come back to it later. Or they do go through that process, and at the end of it, they're like, you know what? Like I have, I'm exhausted because it's so much work. And so one thing we're working on is basically like a template flow, so an artist can go up and just walk. That's kind of like an old school installation wizard where it's like, hey, upload your first layer, click upload, drag a file, done. Great, now name it. Great, now add a state. Like it's literally just like walking you through different steps as kind of a beginner's thing, and try to make it super easy. And also on that note, we're also integrated Fortmatic. So the idea is, okay, if you don't have a crypto wallet yet, log in with Fortmatic at first, and then just learn about it. Oh, by the way, I just see, Sean, sorry, I see the chat if you have a question.
Yeah, first of all, this is flipping awesome, Conlan. Like, this is great. But excuse my ignorance. Like, I don't know a lot about how all the crypto stuff fits together. So I just I want to ask a few questions around how that works, and then get an explanation from you. So, like, I don't really know what OpenSea is. To me, OpenSea is a place where you can sell stuff, NRC tokens, but they're also pictures. So I don't quite know how you fit in there. So that's the one thing that I'm confused about. Another thing is, like, what exactly is living on the Ethereum blockchain? Is there a contract per artwork? every time a new artwork is created, it's like some custom contract, and then it's just a code for a renderer to create the artwork. So you're basically storing the size of the image, but maybe a little bit bigger. Is
Sure.
that right? If you're having the capability of creating any image with customizability and all those settings living in the same contract, does that mean the contract is like huge? I think, yeah, that's basically what I'm confused about.
Okay, no, those are fantastic questions. The first one, so OpenSea is basically like the eBay or Craigslist of NFTs. So any NFT that is conforming with to the standard, and basically just allow themselves to be transferred, you can basically list your NFT for sale. So if you have a CryptoKitty, if you have a parcel of land, or a marble card or a wild card, you can literally go to OpenSea and be like, I'm going to sell this. Actually, wild cards, I guess I shouldn't speak that, but like you can just list a thing for sale and be like, hey, I want to sell this. So it's really great, and they just take a small percentage cut of that. The second question is, what do we actually tokenize? This is actually a really good question because I just posted a big blog post about this. This is definitely kind of a lot of discussion about this, about what actually lives on the blockchain. And there's different voices, of course. There's some voices that want to actually tokenize the entire image itself. There's other ones that tokenize basically a link to the image on a server somewhere, like maybe the image is living on IPFS. Oh yeah, I will link to that right now. And so there's a lot of basically questions about where this art should live. And what, again, we always come to it with like, okay, build it as if we no longer exist. Build it as if the image platform that we hosted on also doesn't exist. And so what we actually tokenize is just the hash, just the IPFS hash of the metadata and the image. And I can actually walk you guys through what that looks like here. So let's see, can you guys see my screen here?
Jason will put it back on.
Okay.
He's the master controller.
Yes, okay, cool. So I just linked the blog post.
There we go.
Actually, yeah. So actually, I think
you can see a screen now.
It's a pretty good concept. It's basically like, why your art collection is useless without these hashes. So basically, when you mint a piece, I'm going to dive into what actually is minted. Here, the creator is basically specified the token ID, the token URI, which is the hash of the metadata file, and basically who's going to mint all the layers. So if we dive into this, like go on IPFS, we can see that this is the instructions for the render, and basically what it's doing is when the renderer reads this, it's like, okay, hey, there's the name of the piece, here's the description of the piece, here's some attributes, the artist, the layer count, but then here's the layout. And what it does is okay, here's some layers. First, let me go through this layout format. Okay, here's the ID of this layer.
Mine a little bit bigger. Do you mind just zooming in a little bit?
So it goes here and says, here's a layer. Oh, this layer base has different state options. Okay, and then these actually just point to more URIs. So basically, these are also just images that live on IPFS. Here's the base. And then basically what it'll do at this point is say, oh, token ID number 1 relative to the master, which is 162. Token ID number 163 will determine which layer state that these 3 have. Oh, and then the next layer, oh, there's a shadow. Okay, go here, anchor to the base, multiply it, opacity. But then here it's kind of cool. Basically, if you want to have the opacity be a token property, then you could also specify a token ID here and go deeper. So yeah, coming back to the original question is like, yeah, so everything is just IPFS hashes. But again, because of the way it works, like, okay, if IPFS goes down, what you could do is when you run the renderer, you can point it at local files too. So you could basically be like, hey, I still own the original file of the base, and compare the hash to that file and render it if that's the case.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. That makes a lot more sense. I just want to ask a follow-up question on that. There was one piece there called the Doom Hand, and I think the idea for that is the top overlay image, the hand, will make an image disappear, right, when it is pointing at that. So does that mean that I think there's maybe 8 different people in boxes in that picture.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean that in IPFS you store 8 different hands, pictures of hands being on different points in the picture, like different positions?
Sure.
And then depending on what the owner picks, it would pick that particular image of the hand? Or is there a way in the renderer to actually move an item around?
So there's so there's both. In this instance, the artist has minted all the versions of the hand covering each person because he wanted a custom image for each dead state. But that being said, you could just have a hand that has like a cover blank spot and give it a movement range and let the person freely move it. So there's both formats. You could also have it move in chunks of a certain amount too, if you want to be like, okay, chunks of 30 pixels maybe. It's really a full spectrum of what you could do.
Okay, so that means and all of that stuff is stored in the contract, right? All of those instructions.
Exactly.
So the only thing that is not stored in the contract is the data for the images themselves, but they have hashes, and then you fetch the hash from IPFS.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Cool. Denim, you had a question?
Yeah, I got a question. So first of all, hi, Conlan. I think this is a super cool and interesting project, and it really kind of turns the whole kind of art on its head, that you have this kind of programmable art. But I was wondering, so I think it goes without saying that you're quite well known in the crypto art community, and this kind of concept is new and innovative. At first, was it quite challenging to kind of work with these artists to develop these kind of art pieces, because it's turning like the whole model on its head a little bit, and you've got to think differently in creating these art pieces. So that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So
yeah.
Oh no. If you want to ask the next part,
okay,
I just didn't mean to interrupt.
I just want to ask, when did this project exactly start? And maybe what are some of the kind of stats and numbers around how many art pieces you've listed, and when was the first art piece listed?
Sure.
Sorry, one question.
Yeah, so I think working with the artists, getting them on board was pretty easy, the initial group. So one thing that I do run is I own a bunch of CryptoVoxel land. And so there's a whole thing, like basically I was building art galleries there and then renting them out to artists. So I already had a close relationship with a lot of the artists who are initially on board. So it was pretty easy to like say, hey, like, would you like to do a piece in this like new interactive thing? So development really started in November of last year, and then it launched in February. So our launch was on February 25th. And that's when we launched with like the Genesis piece, which is like the First Supper, which is a collaboration where every 13 different artists did their own layer, which is a character. So that was the first one. Yeah, pretty easy to work with them on that regard. Second one was so in terms of stats, it's been pretty good so far. I think in terms of pieces minted, I think we have 40. I think we have like 41 or 42 pieces. And each piece can come with arbitrary number of layers. So some pieces range from 1 layer to like the tribe, which has like 29. So I mean, in terms of tokens minted by artists, that's an average like 15 or something times 40. So there's been quite a few tokens minted. Sorry, and then what was the last part?
It's just around the stats then. Have you found anyone that's come along and said, cool, I want to own every single layer of this art piece, and they've kind of quickly as possible?
There's different types of collectors have emerged. Like there's definitely like there's like kind of there are 3 buckets really, like so far. There's like the people who just want to own the master, which is like, I don't really care what the layers are. The cool part is like the layer owners, they're changing it, but they're still changing it within the artist's original vision. So you're not really giving anything up. If the person changes, it's like, hey, the artist still told you what you could change, give you these states. So I'm going to own the master. I'm still going to own the overall piece. So that's kind of the traditional. I think that those collectors are more like what you would see on Super Rare Maker's Place, people who are like used to owning the piece. And at least in our apps, we show you the master owner front and center. Like that's basically who owns the piece. And then there's a collector who are more the gamified people, like, and other people who like to own just layers. They like to just play with things and control it. That's probably where I would fall in personally. Like, I don't really care who owns it. I just want to tinker with it. So then there's those people. And then there's the third bucket, which is kind of more rare. And those are people who actually want to own both a master and a layer. I think we have a couple of those, but it's more rare because, I don't know, but they're kind of two different mindsets. I would say probably the people who want to own the masters might be the ones who are trying to store value in these works or speculate on them, whereas layers are more like they're playful. I think it's great because an artist, you can basically build your piece to appeal to multiple collectors. Like, you can build a layer that's like, hey, this is a whale layer because this is a very expensive layer and a very powerful layer, but I'm going to give an option for new collectors to come in and like, hey, maybe you can own the eyebrows or like the eyeballs of the character, but like that's a lower price point because that's not really that's a low impact layer.
So, another sort of question, and you mentioned it earlier, is there's massive gas prices at the moment. And firstly, do you think that's having a massive effect on async art, or do you think a lot of your users are sort of hardy to that and don't really mind as much? And then sort of following on from that, do you have any plans to use side chains or layer 2s, or what do you see as the future? Maybe, like how I see it is Ethereum is created so that you can settle millions of dollars in a few minutes. That's why it's so great. It's so secure that you can settle massive amounts of value in a very short amount of time. But if you have an artwork that's worth a few $100s, maybe you don't need it to be on the main chain. I'd love to hear your opinion.
Sure. Yeah, so I would say it's definitely started to affect how the way artists are thinking about layers. Like, because you have to mint every layer as a token, I think more pieces that are in a pipeline have less layers. Like, okay, try to do more with less. And one thing to note is you can mint a token that affects all the parts of the painting. So like, you could have 30 layers, or you could have one token that controls all 30 layers. So it's up to the artist. So we're seeing more pieces come out that are like, I'm going to have a few layers. We've seen a couple pieces that plan to have like 30, but it's like, let me try and condense that a bit. So people are being a little more creative with their layers in terms of minting. In terms of using, I would say we're actually in a pretty good spot because it's art, because you're not required to change your layers. It's not like a game where you have to change them. So I guess it makes it more thoughtful when you change it. And also, even if you don't change it, if I buy that tribe layer and I don't change it for 6 months, I'm still using the token in that regard because I kept the painting locked in that sense. So that's why I feel pretty good about like, okay, like we're not too concerned about the rising gas prices. And I mean, ETH2 is, also gonna hopefully come pretty soon someday. The second question was about layer 2. I don't really think there's any urgency to try and, look into layer 2 solutions for art pieces at least. That's a cool concept about, can you put cheaper art? Like, you could have a version of async art that's more for like just purely gamified pieces, that aren't intended to last 500 years. And maybe those would be on the layer 2 solution. But yeah, not really concerned with trying to add that in at this time.
Perfect.
Conlan, is there any? Sorry, Jason, to cut you off there. I know I didn't do a little comment. So Conlan,
no, I wasn't going to say much. But anyway.
Okay, you go first, Jason. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to finish my comment and say I think the promise of a lot of these layer 2s is that a lot of new users might be scared off by the gas prices, the transaction times, etc. So, I mean, at Wildcards and some of our other projects, a lot of the reason we're looking at these layer 2s is just for user experience. Go for it, John.
Cool. I was just going to quickly comment on overall painting governance. So, if you have 29 people owning 29 layers, maybe one oak has just really done something bad with the layer, and you could, or maybe he loses his private keys or something, and that's always stuck with the pink piece that really doesn't match the rest. Maybe you could have some cool way of governance where, everyone who owns one piece of the layer has one vote, and you can have a super majority to force someone to change one of the layers. There's lots of cool stuff like that you could think about.
Sure. No, that's fascinating. haven't thought much about that particularly, but I mean, it is cool to think about that you are governing through art. Like you have a piece and you are trying to collaborate. I think the best pieces, I encourage that. I encourage people to respond to other changes that people have done. Yeah, right now there's nothing in place. If you lose your keys, the art's frozen forever like that, which is kind of cool. Yeah, no, that's. I mean, we've seen a little bit of people like calling out in the Discord, like, "Hey, change this," or like, reach out on Twitter to try and find the collectors, like, "Hey, can you move your layer a bit?" We've seen a couple instances of people doing that. I hope that someday people don't get bullied into changing it. Like, "Hey, like I'm gonna find you and change this art." But maybe who knows? It's yeah.
You said you had a few apps for displaying the pictures. Does one of them happen to be something that will sign up for notifications, I guess, from IPFS? Is that where the notifications will come from? Anyway, but sign up for notifications and then download the image and just copy it or replace some image, on your computer so that you could use it as a desktop.
I really want to build this out. I think it's awesome. Like a desktop and a wallpaper changer that just changes your art based on that. I don't have as much time these days, but like I definitely, it's something like if I was looking at this project from the outside like a year ago, I was like, oh, let me build these apps. So I love that. Like a wallpaper changing app for your phone, even like it could change the art and change the background or lock screen of your phone for Android. That's definitely the plan. Build as many basically anywhere there's a screen, their art should be livable on there. I think the end goal though for notifications is a digital frame. Like I have a mural on my wall. Basically, I want us to have a frame that's like that, like a standalone frame, and I want that frame to be able to communicate and with the chain independently and render the art independently, because I want this frame to be that even if everything around it goes away, like the platform IPFS, it would have to store the image. The first time it encounters the art, it would download all the assets. But I want the frame to live by itself, so that if everything except Ethereum goes away, it can still read it. And then people, like one of the visions for it is like you could pass this frame down in your family from generation to generation, and maybe Ethereum's still running, and it's still the same chain. Okay, maybe make sure it doesn't change, but like it's still the same chain. And maybe in 100 years, people have this digital frame in their family, and they forget even what it is. They just think it's a digital art frame, and then it starts changing after like 100 years because like the token owner has like been traded finally. I think that would be a really cool concept.
I wonder if you could embed a cold wallet into the frame, or like some keys into the frame, and those keys are used to decrypt the image. So you only store encrypted shit on the on IPFS or whatever, and then only the frame can decrypt it.
The frame maybe owns the art. Like like you get the frame and like, hey, this frame, like this layer belongs to this frame always or something. That's super cool. Yeah, I want to see artifacts that live on beyond. So I think a frame is a place to do it.
So I've got maybe a sort of finishing question. How does async art plan to be in, or how do you envision async art to be in 100 years and 500 years, like you're talking? Maybe that's too long. Maybe 5 years is a good time span. Sort of what's your business model? How is it going to be sustainable? And then how do you think it'll interact with other projects? Do you think other projects will build on top of async art? Is async art meant to be like a sort of open source layer at the bottom? Or do you plan to have async art kind of be front and center mostly?
Sure. So for long-term vision, I'd love to see more people just start thinking in interactivity. Like when they make a piece of art, just like there's like lighting, composition, colors, I want interactivity to be another part of their brain. Maybe they don't want to use it, but at least they should consider it. Like, okay, do I want my painting interactivity? So I would love for like people in art school to be learning about interactivity, like as a class. So that would be the first thing. I guess that's as a concept. Company-wise, so our business model is we take a commission percentage off the first sale, because we're kind of a gallery, and then we take a percentage off every secondary sale. Right now, it's just a 1%. And we basically just want to get as many artists on on here as possible. And because we really see this as a platform. And so like, I would love to see in the future, like DeviantArt, like even artists from DeviantArt or Behance or Dribble just creating like these little creations. Not everything on async has to be like this big grand Mona Lisa or magnum opus. It could just be like, hey, here's a little cool little design that I made with 3 layers. I want to just sell it out to my small, like my community or my following. Maybe a webcomic artist is like, hey, I want to like mint like a panel of my last page and make that interactive. So I would love to, basically see us move into there. And I think we are one of the projects that actually could bring people into the space who weren't into blockchain before. That's what I'm hoping. And if that happens, that's good for everyone. Like if we can get more people into blockchain, it's good for everyone. In terms of how we interact with other projects, there's been some really cool stuff done so far. Like one artist, Fabien Rashid, we have a subgraph deployed. He's built these interactive tools that look at the art piece. So he's built this tool. Actually, do we have time to share it? I could show you guys. Okay, cool. Check this out. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Perfect. Got it.
Okay, cool. So Fabien has built this app called Regalia. And anyway, let me just show you. It's basically like the symmetry drawing app. So like you can draw things, the color changes. And because it uses symmetry, it's very easy to do like these kind of cool creations.
Oh, so cool.
And what's neat about this is this tool that he's built. You could basically do all sorts of creative stuff. Like you could fill it up. I'm not an artist. I'm just you could do all these crazy creations, and it takes its settings from this piece Regalia. So you can see it starts out. That's basically the starting position of what this looks like, because the layer owners of the brush size, the symmetry count, the color palette, when they change it, this tool will change with it. So if you want to use a different color, you kind of have to like ask the owner of the layer to change that, and then you can download it. And he did a competition where basically people in the community create their own, and some people came up with some fascinating, very beautiful designs. So that was kind of one instance of someone building on top of it. And I'd love to see people do it even deeper. Like you could imagine a game, like imagine a side scroller where, the weapons you get or the armor you get is based on an actual art piece. So that's kind of the first part of the graph, letting other projects plug in. We also see collaborations with other projects. So people coming in and their artists, like CryptoKitties, for instance. We worked with CryptoKitties team, and they did one of the cat layers. Their team drew one of the cat layers that you can move around. So there's collaborations there. There's a bunch of. It's programmable art, so there's a bunch of cool stuff I would love to see NFTs deeper interact deeper. I could brainstorm some ideas, but it's also
One last question. Yeah. Sorry, I know you guys want to wrap up. Do you have a video renderer?
Not yet.
Or is that on the?
So the cool part about this is like really anything that's renderer, like open source rendering, you could basically replace the 2D renderer and do. You could have a GIF renderer. Oh, nice, very cool link. You could have a video renderer. I think it'd be cool to do a music renderer too, like an MP3 generator that can generate things. I would say the biggest thing that's stopping us right now is just sometimes we feel like we're moving too fast, like we're adding new features to it. And I guess now we always want to check ourselves, like, hey, like, does enough of the base understand how this works? But video would be super sweet. One of our conversations way back was like, imagine the future when like Quentin Tarantino directs a film and tokenizes it, and now like the movie is like an async movie, and like now you can own the ending or something, or you can rearrange the scenes. And then people are watching in theaters like the final version, and then someone changes it, and then the next day when people are watching in theaters, like it changes. It's kind of a crazy thought. I'm probably not gonna happen, but like, yeah, movies would be pretty awesome.
That's awesome, yeah. I don't know if you've watched one of the latest Black Mirror's Bandersnatch where on Netflix you can like choose the ending. That would be super cool if you could own the ending and make it for everyone.
No, I really like that one. That was pretty innovative. I kind of wish they would bring that back. Netflix, like add more like Game of Thrones, right? Like you want to change or something crazy, but it's a cool model.
I guess it's just a lot of work.
Can you
What do
imagine
you
how
think,
much the Game of Thrones ending would be priced at?
It's all they'd probably sell. Yeah, they'd go for a lot. Could change the ending.
Yeah, sure. That would be insane.
Do you think AI would ever be, controlling the layers? I think that could be interesting. AI that tries to get people engaged. It learns what people like. Experiments.
So we have a piece that we call autonomous, and those are basically, since all these layers are used to push updates on the chain, autonomous pieces are just ones where the layer is controlled by a server, and that server can now react to like real world input. So we have a couple pieces where like the server's checking the price of Bitcoin and uses its layer based on that. We have some pieces that just look at day and night cycles. We have a piece where it changes the day and night of the painting based on like the time zone of one layer owner. Like one layer owner can input their latitude and longitude, and the AI will look at that and like update the server. So like, yeah, it's absolutely like AI is controlling these. It's cool to think that you're collaborating with an AI to control some of the layers.
Conlan, that was super fascinating. I think we'll all agree that there's so many cool things that you guys are doing, and there's so much scope for more cool stuff to build as well. Like, I don't even know where it ever ends. There's just so much fun to be had and things to experiment with. So thank you so much for giving us a little peephole into your world and all the excellent things you're building. Absolute pleasure to have you. And yeah, we look forward to, I'm sure, having you again in a couple of months where there's no doubt going to be more awesome stuff to share.
Thank you. Oh, super glad to be here.
Thanks, Conlan.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have an awesome rest of your Friday. And remember to stay positive and test negative.
And make